This video might save you 25 years when it comes to relationship building skills in composing and creating music. And in fact, even if it doesn't do that, it's going to at the very least move you down the field 1 or 2 years in your relationship building skills. My name's Dan Spencer. I've had multiple books hit #1 bestseller in their categories on Amazon, and I'm a coach to gamers who want to compose and create their own music. And so here's the thing, you don't actually need to be a professional musician for this to work for you. In fact, you can get started right now. In fact, the lessons I'm going to teach you here were earned by losing literally hundreds of relationships throughout my life by not knowing these simple principles that I'm going to share with you that you can actually put into action right now to become someone people love, enjoy, and want to spend time with and want to work with. The version of myself when I'm streaming is not the version of me on my worst day. And I want to minimize in life and also on all days the version of myself I am on my worst day. And I also want to make how bad that guy is increasingly less bad. So it's like, how grumpy do I get now compared to a year ago? Oh my gosh, it's so different. Like I don't even really get grumpy now, right? Because I've been working on how worse the worst day is. So it's like, figure out for you who you are on your best day, and then make more of your days you on your best day. And then that is the paired association people have with you. So we do 10% of your days are your best days, 10% of your days are your worst days, then you got the shady 80 in the middle, and it rhymes, so that's more fun, right? So it's like, who am I on my top 10% of days, and how do I be that for my 80, and then figure out what my new 10% is. Because your brand is you, who you are, how you act, how you are with your family, how you are with people who you interact with. I'm sleep deprived. I biked for 60 miles the day before. I'm in a different time zone, different country. I'm with my dad and my sister, and we walk into a supermarket in the middle of like this teeny tiny. Oh, by the way, we were in the town that Rare Games got started in, which is at Ashby de la Zouch, which actually is the town that my family comes from in England originally. Fun story. So we were in Ashby de la Zouch, which is where Rare Games got started. We're going into this in England. There's a thing called Tesco, and we're going in there, and there's a big old security guard, and we were having fun. And I was talking with him. My sister was like, "How do you just walk up to people and start having fun with them?" And I didn't think to tell her at the time, but I want to tell you guys the answer. The answer is I paid attention to who I was on my best days, on my top 10% of days. And then I said, the actions I did there, how do I make those actions a habit? Make those actions a routine, and that routine becomes the identity so that I am the best version of myself. And then I take it to the next level, because then I notice, all right, now in my top 10% of days, which I've just upped the degree and the level of quality of all the days, who am I on my best 10% of days? And then I do that. And then over and over again, and I figure out ways to be even better. I'm like, all right, on my best 10% of day, was I treating everyone the same, no matter who they were? Right? Whether it was the Queen of England or the security guard at the Tesco's, did I talk to everyone with the same respect and acknowledge and honor their humanity at the same level? Yes, no. And so it's things like that. And that's the personal brand to build. Right? And then all you do is you turn on a camera while you're doing that and you capture it. That's it. Be yourself and market yourself on your best day, and then increase what your best day is and continue to market yourself. And the person who you would want to be more of that person every day and figure out exactly what those actions are and then practice doing those actions. If you put all your time and energy into creating music for the rest of your life, but you're someone that people don't like, you have wasted your time. And it's not to say that you fake it or you have to be like a high energy person. That's not true. In fact, a lot of people don't like working with high energy people because they're not high energy people. They're like, this is too much. Like, I need everyone to slow down and like, hold on. Right. And so it's about being the best version of yourself. You're not putting on an act. You are practicing being the person who you want to be, actively practicing being the person who you want to be, doing it in public, documenting it, doing it when you work with people, doing it when you're in a game jam, do it when you're talking with someone on Discord, all the time. Because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to have to think about being the best version of yourself. You just want to show up and be the best version of yourself. Because do you want to know who gets the gigs? You want to know who gets the work? It's not the most talented composers, guys. It's also not the people who spent the most hours working on composition. Now, to be clear, you got to put your hours in, you got to get your skills up. It's also not the people who are able to create the most elaborate compositions. These are not the people who get work. You want to know who gets work? The people who are easy to get along with. They show up on time. There's zero drama. They deliver on time. They ask a lot of questions. They get clear. They're about service. They're about contribution. They're about showing up for the team, and they bring no ego to the table. These are the people who get and continue to get work over and over and over again. And if there's any part of you that has a conflict with the 9 things that I just mentioned, isolate, figure out exactly what behaviors you do that are contrary to those. And I would invite you to consider modifying those behaviors and training yourself to engage in different behaviors. And when you do those behaviors enough, it becomes a habit. Do that habit enough, becomes a routine. Keep that routine long enough, it becomes part of your identity, and bam, you're a new person. At a fundamental level, when you bring ego into a scenario, let me break that down for you because people say that all the time. And what does it actually mean? Ego into a scenario means you are bringing a fixed thought position into a scenario and you're unwilling to be flexible with your thought position. Okay. So a thought position you could bring into a scenario is all Martians steal. Everyone from Mars is a dirty, dirty thief. That could be your fixed, it's a thing that you believe is a fixed idea. You go to a party, you find your wallet missing, you look over in the corner, there's 2 Martians. What's the first thing you say? You don't say, "Where's my wallet?" You said, "Which Martian took my wallet?" Why? Because your belief is that Martians steal. Now, the tricky thing is, a lot of us have beliefs that have been programmed into us by aunts, uncles, parents, TV shows, whatever. And we don't think to question those beliefs because we think that they're just true things for how the world works. Everything that you think, if you have an opinion on it, if you're able to label it with an adjective, is a belief. I had a good time. I feel happy. If you're putting an adjective to it, you're labeling it, you are turning it into an ego position. Anything that you label becomes an ego position. I don't like him because he is blank. I didn't enjoy hanging out with her because she, why? What are those? Ego position. You're fabricating a sense of self that is validated by a rejecting or an acceptance of another form. And when you do that, you reinforce the ego sense of self. And if you stop yourself from labeling something, instead of saying, "I'm excited to do XYZ," you can say, "Right now, I'm here. When I'm doing that thing, I will be there." All of a sudden, the ego dissolves. When you're talking with someone in your head, if you're thinking they're talking too slow, they're talking too fast, what is that? That's an ego position. And that ego position will trigger your nervous system to be for something or against something. People have mirror neurons. They pick up your nervous system. They will feel if you're for or against them. And so what I'm inviting you to do is that the fastest way I've found to change myself and to change the actions and behaviors that I don't want to have is to disconnect the ego from it, not label it, but just choose to do a different action that is in line with who I would like to be. Now, to be clear, who I'd like to be in and of itself is an ego position. You're never going to get rid of having an ego. It's part of being a human. It's built in. It's part of the process. It doesn't go away. But the question is, how do I use that ego as opposed to it using me? How do I incorporate it in a way that works in my life instead of doesn't work in my life? So you're talking to your brother, your sister, your mother. Watch what your brain is saying. Your brain's going to start telling stories, and just watch what the stories are and just listen to them. You can smile at the stories. You're going to stories like she's talking too fast, or oh, I can't believe her breath stinks, or like whatever it is. You can have these stories. But instead of identifying yourself with the story, watch the story. And the part of you that's able to watch the story of the ego taking a position, that's the real you. And the more you can be in that part of you, the less ego you have, the easier you are to work with. Why? Because then nothing offends you. Nothing. Nothing. Nothing's offensive. Why? Because you're not taking an ego position against something. No one can say anything to you that will rub you the wrong way. Why? Because you don't have a fixed position that could be rubbed against. No one's going to think you're pushy. Why? Because you're not pushing for a thing that you think should happen. You show up present in the present moment. And whatever the present moment gives you, you ride that thing like a surfer riding a wave. That's the key. And I'm not telling you I've got this down perfectly. I don't, and none of us will ever. It's part of being human that it's this balance between being and doing. It's a balance between when you're creating music and you're in that place where you're not there, you're in flow, and you forget that time exists. You forget form exists. You're not as much in the world of form. Whereas when you're having a day where everything's rubbing you the wrong way or a sound is annoying, right? You're taking positions, you're creating a form position against another form position. And you're saying, I'm for this or I'm against this. You're using a language of war and of conflict inside of yourself. And so the best brand that I've been able to build inside of myself is a brand of minimized and incorporated ego. That's what makes you easy to work with, is when you don't bring ego to the table. And we just talked about how you operationalize that. You operationalize that by not identifying with the thoughts that your brain generates. You identify with the part of you that can acknowledge that a thought was thought. Real quick, everyone close your eyes. Hold out your right hand so it's not touching anything. And ask yourself, without touching anything, without moving my right hand, without moving any part of my body, how do I know that my right hand is there? How do I know my right hand is there? Now you may notice you can feel something. You feel a tingling. If you're very still, you might even feel your pulse in your fingers. Real quick, open your eyes. So how to get out of the head when the head's making stuff up is you go into your body. Put your attention into your body. I'm hanging out with a bunch of family this weekend. Guess where I'm going to be hanging out 95% of the time? I'm going to be hanging out my body. Why? Because families is like a cooking pot of ego positions. Oh, you always say that because you're up. Like, no, I'm not getting in on that game. Go in the body. And so it's the same thing when you work with people, right? When you work with a developer and they say, hey, look, this music doesn't work. Whatever response your brain comes up with, acknowledge that brain had a response. Don't take action on it. You say, oh, okay, what would work? Don't identify with the ego position. It's going to happen. It's a natural product of having a brain with survival mechanisms in it. Let it happen. Let it flare up. Watch it. Be like, oh, that thought's happening. And then just continue on as if it didn't happen. You do not need to act on thoughts. You do not need to identify with your thoughts. Your thoughts are not you. They're just thoughts. You are greater than your thoughts. And I know that because you can watch your thoughts. Who's able to listen to your thoughts? Who hears your thoughts? It's you. That version of you that's able to hear the thoughts is outside of the thinking, which means your thoughts are not 100% of you, which means there's something else you can identify with. And when you identify not with the thoughts, but with that something else, that's when you minimize the ego. That's when you are crazy easy to work with. And not just that you're easy to work with other people, but it's easy to work with other people because you can be easy to work with on the outside, that you make it easy because you hold those thoughts in, but you still feel awful because you're going roller coaster by yourself. Or you can literally make it so that You yourself don't even go on the roller coaster because you watch the thought, and the thought itself, instead of having an ego positioned against yourself, because you inside of yourself, you can have ego positions and you send yourself on your own roller coaster. And instead, you can watch the thought happen, acknowledge the feeling, feel the feeling in your body, go into your body, and then it dissolves. That is how you operationalize creating a brand of being easy to work with. But like, think about that. And it's also not a thing to think about, and it's not a thing to do. There's no doing required. You just be. And in the beingness that is you, in this present moment, that is the real you. And then you can just watch the thoughts happen. Just watch them. And if it's a thought that normally you would have taken action on, just watch it go by. It's like the queen. Just watch it wave as it goes by. Like, oh yeah, I used to take you seriously. Now I don't. Bye. So what if the next time someone says something that would have gotten you defensive before, you just watch that defensive thought as it just walks down the road and disappears? And then you don't get defensive at all, because what is there to get defensive about? We're all going to be dead in 100 years. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Let's make some beautiful music while we're here. Let's make people's lives better while we're here. Let's leave some music for the world that the world can enjoy. Let's create something beautiful. Let's build. Let's be kind to each other. The one skill that will get you to be successful in music is not counterpoint. It's not even music theory. All that are tools that you need, to be clear. But the skill that will bring you success in music, long term, internally and externally, is your ability to disassociate from the ego. Not that you're rejecting part of yourself, but that you understand that that part of yourself has groundings in your lizard brain, your hind brain. It has survival instincts baked into it. And it is not, I repeat, it is not the most helpful guide when it comes to building and maintaining relationships. And then the skill down from that is building and maintaining relationships. That is where success is. Not just success, but meaning and purpose and enjoyment and fulfillment. We're made to be social creatures, and the better we can play that game and be in that game, the better life is. It's been real. Go make some awesome music, make yourself proud, and crush it.